Imagine if understanding laziness can unlock the secrets to productivity and allow you to achieve all of those things you've been putting off. I've wrestled with questions about human behavior and what motivates us for about 5 years. And I will present here the most concise and practical blueprint to put an end to this problem forever, even if you've been struggling with it for years. Laziness is not a character flaw. It is the result of underlying psychological factors, and by understanding these factors, we gain control over our behaviors and impulses and use it to achieve our goals. The causes of laziness. Laziness often stems from negative emotions associated with a task or a lack of compelling personal reasons to do it. There are many factors that contribute to those emotions. Like, for example, a negative self-image. If we have a negative self-image, we believe that we are not capable of achieving our goals, and this will discourage us from pursuing them. Negative emotions toward tasks. If we feel negative about a certain task, we are less motivated to do it. Self-judgment, dwelling on past failures, or perceiving inadequacies fuel these discouraging emotions. Conflicts with our values and identity. We often procrastinate on deeply desired goals when they clash with our core values or sense of self. This self includes how we see ourselves and the things that we typically focus on. The more anxious we are to have what we want, the greater the internal conflict. And as a path to achieve our goals emerges, the tension comes up, and fear of failure, self-doubt, and similar anxieties bubble up, because fulfilling the desire will require stepping outside of our comfort zone and being who we don't see ourselves to be. And here's the thing, when we don't see ourselves being what we want to be, we will naturally feel tension and we need to sabotage ourselves, because we feel the stress of acting differently and the deprival of not acting in the old ways. Low expectations. If we have low expectations for ourselves, we won't believe that we can achieve our goals, and this will lead us to feeling lazy and unmotivated to even try. Feeling overwhelmed. If we feel overwhelmed by the number of tasks that we have to do, or that they are too difficult for our level, the negative emotions will make us cope to relieve ourselves. This is because our brains exhaust their capacity a lot quicker from that state, and then it seeks rest. Lack of focus on our goals. If we are not focused on our goals, we feel less compelled to pursue them. And then other unrelated things will take space in our mind, and we will tend to be distracted towards those things. Lack of focus on your goals and focusing on unrelated things leads to distraction. The stronger the negative emotions, and the less the focus, the less likely you are to do things well. And on the other hand, the stronger the reasons, and the more focus on them, the less lazy you will be. Laziness as escape. The key to understanding laziness is understanding tension. The tension that our emotions make us feel towards the tasks that we want to do. Think of it as a pressure cooker, where you are cooking up your goals. Then when the heat increases too much, it starts to release hot air. The hot air are the negative emotions associated to the task. They could be coming from any of the reasons we've seen in the previous segment. So our objective is to identify which areas are the negative emotions coming from. Is it that your mind is focused on too many unrelated things? Is it that you don't feel capable of achieving your goals? Or that you're just trying to make yourself feel well? Is it that you're constantly dwelling on past failures? Or are you inwardly conflicted about what you're doing? We are naturally inclined to remember things that makes us feel bad. If we fail at a particular task, those emotions will bubble up next time you try. And if you don't address them, you will constantly feel the same way and thus try to avoid that activity. And that's why laziness happens. Have you ever noticed how different tasks and experiences can evoke a different range of emotions? This is because our subconscious mind creates deep association. It doesn't just process the task itself, but everything linked to it in the past. This concept is called spread activation network, as the philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti says. Quote, you meet somebody, and what is your reaction? Your reaction is the outcome of your memories, your prejudices, your anxieties, your past experience of pleasure and pain. So the mind is always shaped by the past in its response to the present. End quote. Every time we interact with someone or something, we frame it from our memories of our past experiences with it. Those experiences and their emotional content become associated to the thing. So when our emotions toward things are left unaddressed, those emotions associated come to the surface as soon as you approach the thing. For example, in my experience, I've struggled with advertising on Google, and as I did, every time I went to do it, the negative emotions and frustrations will come up. And from that state, I was unable to get into the flow and get good ideas, or even learn and make progress. We will want to avoid the things that we have associated negative emotions to. Negative emotional associations are more powerful than positive associations, and here's why. There are several neurological and physiological reasons why negative emotions tend to have a stronger impact on behavior than positive emotions. For our ancestors, quickly identifying and reacting to threats like predators and dangerous situations was vital for their survival. This led to developing a brain that prioritizes danger detection. Negative emotions like fear and anger fuel that rapid response system. The amygdala, which is responsible for our threat detection system, shows greater activity in response to negative stimuli compared to positive ones. Additionally, negative information tends to be processed more thoroughly in the brain. We dwell on negative situations longer, trying to make sense of them. How to address negative emotions. Negative associations can be pictured as a war between you and your goals. And all the emotions, thoughts, and beliefs hindering you are part of this war. So how we address these emotions? These emotions can be overcome using the following techniques, such as exposure. This involves exposing yourself to that negative emotion in a quiet, relaxed environment such as in meditation. Our negative emotions come from how we react to our thoughts and emotions. By exposing ourselves, we relax our body and our responses because we don't react to things, we move towards them voluntarily and repeatedly. And by no longer reacting to the thoughts and emotions, they lose power over us. Reframing. This involves challenging negative thoughts and brainstorming alternative perspectives. This can help you see things in a more positive light and develop a more positive attitude. It's important because the main problem with our negative emotions is that our minds have become locked into seeing things from one perspective, and brainstorming allows ideas beyond that state to come into your mind. Think about your goal and end in a positive note. When we think of our goals, if there are some which we've been struggling hard with due to lack of skill, lack of self-esteem, or lack of self-belief, we tend to feel negative about them. And we have this memory of feeling bad about it every time we thought of it. And thus the negativity becomes instant. With this technique, what you do is you step out of yourself and you ask, How will it feel to experience this? Not how will I feel, because the negative emotions reside in the I, and you experience that question as a simulation and end it in a positive note, meaning that you end it feeling well. If it just takes 15 seconds until you start to feel negative, then just think about it for 15 seconds. The value here is teaching your mind that the last time you thought about these things, you felt well, and that alone makes your mind process things behind the scenes and begins to move your experience towards those emotions. Next, eliminate information overload and dopamine sources for 1 or 2 weeks and choose to remove some sources permanently, or at least do them just once a week. The reason for this is that our minds work in contrast. Everything we do is not easy or hard, it is compared to another thing. If you are exercising and you feel weak, it's because your mind is actively comparing the present with the opposite thing it could be doing, which means the old habit. And when that opposite habit is much easier, then the present is seen as negative, and our bodies become stressed and tense. You're basically as good as whatever you're comparing what you're doing to. And besides that, information overload makes us unfocused. Think of your mind as a laser beam. When it focuses on one point, it breaks through that point and makes progress. But when the energy is scattered all around, then the laser runs out of battery before making enough progress on one point. This is why information overload and dopamine stimulation is something that you must deal with. Because every thought you hold in your mind is depleting your energy. So all of your thoughts must be aligned with one purpose. Also, when you shift mentally from one subject to another, it takes a great deal of effort. That's why some of us are struggling so hard. If you have thoughts about politics and then you try to shift to thinking about business, not only you will need effort to make that shift, but once you make the shift, you start from a weaker place. And besides that, that's why the way we spend our time and how we relax are very key choices. If you gratify yourself by spending a lot of money every time, you can see how everything will become less enjoyable, because you won't be able to enjoy normal things because it takes so much to gratify you. Keep your life quiet. The higher the highs you pursue, the more you will struggle when you are working. Keep your highs low, and then your training will become more easier because there will be nothing to compare it to. And that's the secret behind dopamine detox. I personally eliminated video games from my life like 6 years ago, as they make everything seem hard. Since they're so stimulating, then everything else becomes struggle and suffering. And after removing them, everything became normal, and it is a choice that I've kept ever since. Here are some tips from eliminating information overload and dopamine sources. Take a break from social media. Social media is a major source of information overload and dopamine stimulation, because the feed is full of many subjects that are loading your mind and confusing you. And besides that, social media opens curiosity loops in our brains. Even though we might not be searching for something on purpose, we end up getting our curiosity piqued. And it is hard to resist once you enter it, but it's easier if you avoid it altogether. Positive emotions and how they can beat laziness. Imagine something that you would love to have that you could if you achieved your goal. Imagine how will a person feel in the experience of that. Feel how it will feel to have it. If you did so, then you feel what's truly behind all motivation, which is the experience of a desired future possibility. Now imagine if you concentrate on those emotions for longer and remove everything else. If you do so, the emotions will intensify and they will become more prevalent, and the ideas will be more vivid in your mind. And next thing, if you remember it often for months, and it is the only repetitive behavior you have, you will agree with me that those emotions will be more present more often, and the ideas behind them will be more present in your mind. The focus will make them more intense. And what is more important is that the other ideas and the distractions contrary to your goal will be substantially weakened, starved from your attention. This is the positive emotion side of motivation. It's about focusing and nourishing our desires against everything else. Another important thing is our reasons. As Brian Tracy says, quote, "When it comes to aggressively selling your product or service, who do you think will be more motivated? Will it be the person with 1 or 2 reasons to succeed, or the person with 50 plus reasons? The fact is, the more reasons you have, the greater will be the intensity of your desire. Like a roaring furnace, the more you want it, the more guaranteed it is that you will do whatever it takes to achieve it." End quote. Writing many reasons, as we said, and becoming aware of those reasons by seeing them often and increasing the intensity by concentrating on them for long periods of time is the positive emotion part of overcoming laziness. The pleasure of those reasons will become the pain that you will feel if you stand still in inaction, and that will prevent you from being lazy again. Part of overcoming laziness also is being honest with yourself. Why do you do this? Doing it because others do it doesn't motivate you. Doing it because people online do it, it doesn't work because you have no interest in pleasing those people and those online gurus, for example. You have to find the reasons to please yourself only. You will only take action because the pleasure of the rewards are something you desire. And that's what the reasons should be. Acting for oneself is worth it. Acting because others do it doesn't worth it. Setting realistic goals. Once you have addressed the negative emotions that are hindering action, you can start to set realistic goals. This is extremely important because goals that are too difficult to achieve lead to discouragement and thus laziness. When setting goals, it's important to consider the following. Belief. Motivation is driven by the belief that our actions can lead to desired outcomes. If you do not believe that you can achieve your goals, you are less likely to take action. Emotional connection. Goals that elicit positive emotions create a stronger drive to take action. Because positive emotions motivates us to approach our goals, while negative emotions motivates us to avoid them. Addressing obstacles. It's important to acknowledge and address any obstacles or self-limiting beliefs that might be hindering your progress. This can help you develop strategies for overcoming these obstacles and achieving your goals. Conclusion. Laziness is not a death sentence. It is a result of a series of inner issues. And by understanding each of them and assessing where your problem lies, you can deliberately work to flip the scales to your favor. If you like this video, click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more personal development tips.